my name's Dave Kretschmar. This is the first installment of something I call Tales from Gypsy. Since many of you are stuck inside your houses and not able to go out and interact with folks, I thought I would share something that I've been working on and perhaps read a story or two just to lighten things up a little bit. So I'm going to share with you a project I've been working on. I've been building a gypsy wagon. Now, a gypsy wagon is an old thing. It used to be drawn by horses, by people who like to live on the road, constantly be on the move, seeing new things all the time, traveling. And I am definitely that way. I love traveling and seeing new places, constantly going and experiencing new cultures. I decided to build a gypsy wagon after seeing a friend of mine, Nick, who had built one. And nowadays there's a lot of people who have RVs, but to me RVs are mostly plastic and electronics, and the gypsy wagon is basically the opposite of those things. So I'll show you the gypsy wagon. It's in progress, and hopefully each week you'll see it transform a little bit as it gets closer and closer to finishing. So come with me. There we go outside. It's snowing today. Here's the gypsy wagon from the outside. Just started with a little 7x12 trailer, and been building it up ever since from scratch. Come around to the back. Still got to put the finished roof on there. Got a little Dutch door, they call them. I've been building everything myself. There we go, coming inside. So, as you can see, it's still a work in progress, but it's coming along. Up here's the cedar roof. All the beams have been timber framed into the center beam up there, and then this beam is the work of Susie and I's 12-foot length of Doug fir that Susie carved with some cool knotwork, and then we charred it in a fire, stained it and burnt it. So everything needs its final coat of beeswax. Been building some cool little decorative dormer windows. Over here is going to be the kitchen. You'll start to see the base of the cabinet there. There'll be a sink and a fridge and a 2-burner stove there. Some cool little cabinets going in there. Back behind over here is going to be a little tiny wood-burning stove. A little pot-bellied stove for warmth. I close the door to keep the heat in. Yeah, up here, that's going to be the bed up there with a big bay window out the front. There's also a little window at night that can be opened there just for fresh air. Underneath here will be a pull-out table, and where that saw is will be a bench, and then a bench on that side. And then underneath there will be storage. There's 2 doors to the outside, so you can access stuff from the outside. There'll be a bunch of shelves underneath there. So that's the gypsy wagon. Been working on it for about 4 months or so in my free time, but now I have a lot more free time, so it's going a little faster. So I'm going to read a story for you. I was looking for different stories to read online of different authors, and finally realized I had a story I'd been writing for a few years and just needed some encouragement to finish it. So now you'll get to hear the first few chapters, and I have some motivation to finish the story. So let me find a good place for this camera. This story is written for my nieces and nephews, scattered all over the world: Zara and Rich, and Lonnie and Karina, and Ob and Senna, Easy E, Nala, Nishta, Chop Chop and Jossam, Yo, Toby and Charlie in Holland. This is for you guys. I think I got them all, a bunch of them. And this story I need some help with naming it, so maybe as you listen to it, you can help me come up with a name. It's about squirrels. High in the mountains of the Rockies, there lived a squirrel from the Red family. She was 2 years old and lived alone high in a Douglas fir. She had built her nest by herself in an old hole, possibly abandoned by a woodpecker, and stuffed it full of warm, soft duff from mosses and lichens and cedar bark. The woods in which she lived were an old forest, with towering cedars, firs, spruce and hemlock, and some cottonwood and birch thrown in. There was plenty of food to be had, if one was hard-working and knew how to store it for later. And she was a hard-working squirrel, scampering around all summer and fall, storing up fir, hemlock, and spruce cones for the coming winter. She dried 30 different types of fungus in the branches of trees and gathered rose hips and maple seeds as well. She buried her food in 2 main larders, deposits that meant life or death. She was always watchful to make sure no one was spying out her food cache. Life was not particularly easy for Selway. That was her name. The winters were long and cold, and she had to do everything herself. Wilderness squirrels, unlike city squirrels, are more private creatures. They live within clearly marked domains, and there are far fewer squirrels in a home range. Nest building, food gathering, marking one's territory, most of it is done solo. The only thing not done solo is mating, and Selway had found out about that one spring. Some animals have elaborate mating rituals. There are dances, booming noises, flutterings, calls, flights of fancy. Deer even cover themselves in muck and urine and drag their antlers in it to adorn themselves. There are animals that also mate for life, like the gray goose and trumpeter swans. Squirrels engage in a day-long chase around the female's territory, with as many as 10 suitors chasing a single female. The male who pursues longest, fastest, and is able to scare off his rivals is chosen by the female to be her suitor. Unlike some other animals, red squirrel mating is kind of sweet. The squirrel she chose mated with her several times, and then they groomed each other before they finally began to separate. Even then, the male wasn't ready to part, so Selway carried him piggyback style for a while before sending him on his way. After Selway's marathon day, she found herself pregnant, and instinct took over. She threw herself into a flurry of preparation. She added soft touches to her nest and made sure it was strong and secure, and that she had plenty of food easy to reach. After 4 weeks, her belly felt like it was going to burst wide open and spill the writhing creatures out on the ground. How many, she wondered. How many boys? How many girls? Chapter 2. A Full Nest. Warm. Incredibly warm. Hot. Moist. Writhing. Tangled together. Things moving around him. Pushing. Squeezing him. Then came stillness for a moment. Again. Writhing. Heat. Moist and squeezing. Now pain. Squeezing. No more tangle. And finally a new sensation. Cold. The squirrel, that would be known as Abby, was the first to come out, and also the largest. After him there followed in quick succession 3 more little squirrels, with all their eyes tightly sealed shut. 4 little pink, hairless, blind, squirming boys. Selway was relieved at first to have the 4 little guys out of her belly, but the relief turned to increasing dismay as they squeaked, whined, and sought constantly after her to feed and cuddle. Whenever she left them, even for a moment, they whimpered and crawled about blindly. There were moments when they were all sound asleep that she relaxed, and even relished the feel of the 4 little hearts as they beat against her skin, but the moments were few and far between. Soon they were crawling around the nest, sniffing, licking, and scratching everywhere. Selway roughly nudged them or grabbed them with her teeth whenever they got too close to the door. 3 weeks after being born, they finally opened their eyes, and then mayhem broke loose. Now that they could see, they were drawn to the light coming through the door and were infinitely curious about it. Selway resorted to nipping them with her sharp teeth, and the young squirrels learned to avoid the door. They were still curious. Finally, a day came when Selway realized she could wait no longer. Getting the boys' attention, she told them to slowly follow her. She walked out of the door into a beautiful, sunshine-filled spring day. She stopped a little ways outside the nest on a large branch and turned to find 4 wide-eyed squirrels peering out the door of the nest. "Come on, boys," she chided. This is what you've been asking for days. Selway's nest was 100 feet up in a towering Douglas fir. The squirrel's first look at the outside world filled them with awe and not a little fear. Slowly, cautiously, sharp claws gripping tightly to the branch, they inched away from the nest towards their mother. However, squirrels are fast learners, and by the end of the first day, though they were not running, they were at least walking with a little more confidence. Each day, Selway taught them something new. They never strayed far from the nest, but she taught them to climb up, down, sideways, and to move faster and faster. Eventually, she taught them to jump from branch to branch. She was a tough teacher, did not tolerate laziness or inattention, cuffing the boys with a paw or delivering a sharp nip as a reminder. They learned to pay attention to the clouds and the wind, and soon could tell when storms were coming in, and safely be in the nest before they struck. At times, the wind would shake their tree, and they would sway through the air as lightning flashed in the sky and thunder rumbled in a constant barrage of sound. The Doug fir swayed in the storms, but after a while they got used to the motion. Safe inside their nest, no rain reached them, and cuddled together they were not afraid. Well, maybe just a little. It seemed as if every day they learned 10 new things about the world they lived in, and every night Selway would ask them questions. How can you tell when a branch is healthy or rotten? What time of day is best for gathering food? How often should you clean your fur? What materials make the softest nest? How do you establish your territory? On and on until their heads buzzed with all this new information. When they got an answer right, they swelled with pride, but Selway quickly leveled them with another barrage of questions. When are seeds ready to harvest? How high should you build your nest? What direction should the entrance face? One subject, though, dominated all the others and set their little hearts quivering. The swift death. Death for squirrels comes in many ways, and almost all of them with a swiftness that is shocking to behold. 1 second bounding along in the sunshine on a branch, the next second dinner for a sharp-shinned hawk, or caught in the razor-sharp claws of a bobcat. Coyotes, fisher, weasels, ermine, fox, falcons, hawks, snakes, owls, you name it, the list is long. Selway drilled them constantly into awareness. At all times, even in the nest, they needed to be listening, watching, feeling, attuned to the sounds and rhythms of the forest. They watched her closely and learned fast. She taught them to be aware of the ripples in the forest caused by the movement of all living things. Like a stone thrown into a pond, the ripples spread out from their maker until the squirrels could sense the coming of a coyote miles away or the hunting of a mink down by the river. Their awareness spread out from their home fir tree like a web spun by a huge spider. Each tremor noticed and tracked. The swift death was easier to track on the ground, and for them to stay out of their way. Those that hunted silently from the sky were a far more difficult problem. To solve it, the squirrels had learned down through the years to use their ears and pay heed to the songbirds. The swift death came from the sky for them as well. The Cooper's hawk, the sharp-shin, and the kestrel all hunt swiftly and silently through the forest, waiting for one moment of laxness, awareness dropped. Squirrels can and do give alarms. The chirp alarm is the most common and is given in response to the swift death, along with violent shaking of its tail. This is to alert other squirrels that are nearby and to let the predator know that it has been spotted. The songbirds, however, are the true master sentinels. They work together to establish widespread areas of safety. One of two are almost always on sentinel duty. Perched high at the top of a tree, they guard the others while they are foraging, constantly scanning for any of the swift death's approach. One swiftly given alarm, and all birds within range immediately go on high alert, awareness maxed out, and a sheltered spot instantly taken. The squirrels learned long ago to heed these alarms and to move instantly when an alarm sounds. They are beneficiaries of an always vigilant and sensitive alarm system, their best protection after their own senses against the swift death. Chapter 3. Separation. Selway had completely stopped mothering the boys now. They had been alive for 10 weeks, and the time was coming for them soon to leave the nest. Selway knew that she would need the rest of the summer and fall to prepare for winter, and that each of the boys would have to find their own territory and get to work. She remembered the pain of her own parting from her mother, and how it was somewhat lessened by the fact that her mother had become increasingly threatening and short of temper with her. In the end, she was almost glad to set out on her own. Almost. Zoe had not even named her sons so as not to grow too attached. She knew that her role was to train them and to send them out alone. She looked out at her 4 boys and saw them all in a riotous pile of fur, tumbling, scurrying, and chasing one another. Once again, she wondered how she was going to separate them. They would each need their own territory to have enough food to gather, and also to stay silent and invisible. Their noise from their play was always frighteningly loud, and she was anxious for them to be gone. It happened a day later, the boys' rough-and-tumble play causing all sorts of noise, none of them staying vigilant like she had taught them. Suddenly a strident dee-dee-dee given by a mountain chickadee split the air. "Move!" she screamed at them. They scattered like dandelion seeds in the wind. Legs pumping, eyes scanning, darting for cover. A shadow swift as thought cut through the dappled light of the forest, and only a lucky dive by her youngest into a rabbit hole saved him. The Cooper's hawk did not linger long, but took off again, hunting for a more unsuspecting victim. The songbirds' companion calls rang out back and forth, the kinglets and chickadees giving the all-clear. The squirrels came out of hiding to find a bristling, red-eyed, menacing figure. "Get out!" their mother screamed at them. "This is the last time you put me in danger with your silly play." The boys were stunned. "Leave," she growled low and threateningly. She pointed into the forest. Her tail was writhing furiously, and then her eyes narrowed and her voice chilled, and she said, "If I ever see any of you again, I'll kill you." She sprang without warning, none of them a match for her, even in a fair fight, let alone now when they were still in shock. She knocked them sprawling, and her teeth bit hard and sharp. They scattered, completely overwhelmed, terrified, running for their very lives. Stay tuned for Chapter 4, Alone. Thanks for listening.